Hello people, this is Ren, and I'm your Nuevillette expert. Now, not to flex or anything, but I do own a top 15% Nuevillette that I'm super proud of, so I do know what I'm talking about here. Let's get going. So just to cover our basics, Nuevillette is a 5-star Hydro DPS catalyst who's become insanely popular from his time soloing the Abyss at C0 or C1 upon release. I was there, it was an insane time to watch. First and foremost, Neuvillette's gameplay is unique. It is my favorite out of all Fontaine characters. Neuvillette, of course, is a Hydro DPS catalyst with a unique mechanic of his life. He drains his HP through his normal and charge attacks, and while Neuvillette is technically self-sustained DPS, even more so with the C1 that increases his resistance to being stuttered. For context, at C0, Neuvillette is highly prone to being stuttered. Neuvillette's charge attack shoots out a beam of water for a considerable distance. It's like the Kamehameha. And so, upon placing that charge attack or burst, you'll see these blue orbs known as source water droplets. Neuvillette takes those 3 droplets and does his charge attack. For a more detailed understanding of the charge attack distance, it's known by the circle that's indicated on the ground. This limit also includes the range of which you can gather the source water droplets to do your charge attack. This then covers the basis of all Neuvillette gameplay. Along with such great gameplay and power, Neuvillette has an amazing artifact domain available. Neuvillette's best artifact set is the Marichusi Hunter set. This artifact bonus gives at max a 36% stack of extra crit rate. This domain is also really resin efficient and also contains the Golden Troop set, which is the best in slot for Farina and Fischl, some of the best characters for Neuvillette's team. Similarly to other DPS characters, crit rate and crit damage are important, but it's also important to have HP percent since Neuvillette is in fact an HP scaler. Ideally, you'll want to prioritize HP percent to crit rate and crit damage. Of course, you'll want to have a healthy ratio of crit rate and crit damage. You simply cannot forget about the energy recharge needed to maintain burst. Now, Neuvillette's energy levels heavily depend on what teams you run him in. In general, you will need 100 to 160. This gets more varied depending on if you run Neuvillette's signature or his F2P weapon. To get more specific, if you're running signature weapon or prototype amber or running Fischl or electro resonance, you'll need at least 100 to 120 ER. Without weapons and teams that help with energy, you'll want 130 to 150 ER. Neuvillette is heavily varying in terms of his energy recharge levels. Whilst you're farming for your artifacts, you may find that elemental mastery is the stuff that you will run into, and that is not typically as important for Neuvillette and shouldn't really be taken into account, because for his artifacts, you'll want to run an HP Sands with either a Hydro damage bonus or HP percent goblet and crit circlet. The Sands artifact, of course, is fully dependent on substats. Just know that the HP percent circlet can be viable if you're running a crit damage weapon or are extremely low on HP, which you shouldn't be. Along with artifacts, you'll need a weapon for your Neuvillette, and Neuvillette happens to have some great options. At number 1 happens to and will always be his signature weapon, Tome of the Eternal Flow. This weapon gives a lot of crit damage, a total of 88% on the weapon stat line, while also getting HP percent and energy, which solves any energy problems he may have. Sure, Neuvillette may not need this much energy, but having an excess of energy means you can prioritize other stats on his artifacts. You also gain up to 3 stacks of 14% of charge attack damage for a total of 42 extra charge attack damage, which is amazing for Neuvillette. His signature weapon just cannot be beaten. However, that isn't to say there aren't any good alternatives for my dolphins out there. The Sacrificial Jade is always a sweet weapon for him. This Battle Pass Catalyst is in most situations his second best in slot, offering 36% crit rate at level 90. This weapon also comes close to the 5-star signature at R5, but even at R1, this weapon gives you amazing stats. Neuvillette can use specifically on these stats an extra 32% HP for 10 seconds. At R5, you'll get 64% extra HP. This weapon is truly amazing for him. Well, if you're committed to the FTP world, don't worry. Neuvillette has a free craftable weapon known as a Prototype Amber. This catalyst main stat is HP percent, offering 41% HP at max level. This free-to-play weapon also gives you a refund on energy, so it deals with the energy issues Neuvillette may end up having. An alternative weapon you could use is the Ballad of the Boundless Blue, which is a decent weapon as one you can get from an old event, and its main use would be to work as an energy recharge stick. Other F2P options include the Hakushin Ring if you're on field where electric characters are doing a lot of damage, it works. Thrilling Tales if you want to buff another character, and Favoni's if you're in need of energy, but it really isn't that recommended. The other bonuses of being EM and attack are absolutely useless, so the Wits would only really act as a crit damage stick for your Neuvillette. Moving on, Neuvillette's Constellations. Neuvillette is a great on-field Hydro driver who does amazing damage, and because he's so useful outside of just personal damage, because of the Hydro application, he doesn't really need Constellations. This does not mean that Neuvillette won't benefit from having a C1, which has 2 main effects. One, it gives you a free stack of his Ascension passive, which is an increase in your charge attack damage by a good amount. With C1 active, you'll always begin one of these stacks as soon as your Nuevillette takes field, meaning you will only need to proc 2 different Hydro reactions to fully stack it. What C1 really does for you is to allow you to create more flexible teams with a fully stacked passive without really having to think of this passive. C1 also increases interruption resistance, which is such a great quality of life feature for any Nuevillette main. Nuevillette C1 is a damage increase overall and a quality of life constellation, but in truth, this means that C1 is a choice depending on what kind of teams you're running or would like to run if you want more damage. Nuevillette, though, does not need a C1. He can do just fine with a shielder or staying at a slight distance, despite that it is troublesome to be stuttered during his charge attack and gets annoying real quick. So speaking about constellations, do you need a C1 or do you need his weapon? These are great questions to have, but it's relatively simple. Just look on the screen and you'll see a chart. Please use this chart as a guide on your decision for your Nuevillette. Alright, so far we've covered artifacts and constellations, but have we even talked about Neuvillette's best teams? Well, Neuvillette's best teams are the teams in which the main focus is buffing Neuvillette's damage. The team I can recommend in full confidence is Nuevillette Charger or Taser teams where he's seen as a hyper carry. That isn't to say that his supports aren't doing a lot of damage, but you know, he's Nuevillette, he's gonna shine. Now, my favorite team, my actual favorite team that I personally run in almost every Abyss video is Nuevillette, Fischl, Kazuha, and Zhongli. Though this team is newly put together since my Nuevillette is at C0 and I just got Kazuha yesterday. So just a quick tidbit that Singcho and Yelan, the go-to Hydra supports, don't work. Their burst only fires off during normal attacks. Also, when team building, Nuevillette doesn't necessarily need a healer since Nuevillette is self-sustainable. The only good reason for needing a healer is if you're running Nuevillette with Brina, my absolute favorite team.
World is full
Moving
of
on to other good teams,
mysteries.
Neuvillette's Hyperbloom, which is a strong single target team, is great for him. You'll have to pair Nuevillette with a Dendro character, specifically Nahida being your best option. You can use Dendro Traveler, and you'll want to use an Electro character that can proctor reactions from off-field. For Hyperbloom, the best is a fully built for EM Raiden. You can also use Shinobu. The thing is with Shinobu, you'll want to stay near the Dendro cores to activate them, which if at Z0 will leave you prone to being stuttered. That is why it's recommended to bring a shielder. You may also run a Burgeon team with Nuevillette, and whilst you cannot run Toma since he relies on normal attacks, you can run someone like Dea and Xiling. Other reactions you can run are Freeze teams if you have a good Cryo off-field support, or even a Vaporize team if you want to run him with Xiling. Just stay near enemies, and like Fischl, you'll want to run a shield for Neuvillette's stutter. With all that being said and done, we can now finally go on to the Abyss. My Nuevillette is a crazy well-built guy, and I spent a good amount of Mora and resin on him. Seriously, he made me broke for like 3 months. Here's how my Abyss tends to go with Nuevillette. Undoubtedly, Nuevillette is an amazing Hydro DPS character and has become my favorite character to main, almost matching the love I had for my first limited 5-star Raiden. I am a Raiden main. I will always be a Raiden main. That being said, don't feel forced to pull for him. At the end of the day, Nuevillette is a choice, and besides, as it stands, a certain father is coming around. I hope you've all managed to grasp an understanding of Nuevillette and all that he offers, and this is Ren signing out.